Hi guys, Peter here with the Man Cave. Today we're going to brew some beer. Very excited. I've done a couple of batches. I've done some homebrew kits where you get the little cans, but I'm now progressing on to actually using the malts and everything else. So I'm going to show you how to do the Abbey Dubbel, which is what we're going to do today. I use the Brew book by Morton. It's a fantastic book. Whether you're a beginner or experienced, I would highly recommend you buy it. I'm not paid to say that. It's just what I use. And it starts from the basic process of how you brew beer using the cans that you can buy, all the way through to making experienced beers like this and bigger batches as well, and what equipment you need and things like that. But also it comes with a whole load of recipes. So I'm going to be using the Abbey Dubbel recipe from this book. I'd highly recommend sticking to the recipes here because it's quite difficult to create your own. We're doing a half batch, so typically most of the recipes in here are for 20 litres. So we'll end up with about 10 litres. We've done both, but we find the advantage of the half batch is it's easier to do in the home setting. When you're trying to heat up the water, the large one takes a long time for it to get up to the temperature. The same as when you're trying to cool it, it takes a long time to cool it. So also the advantages for us is that we can try lots of recipes and we can have lots of small half batches and see which ones that we like. And then once you know which one you like, then you can maybe decide to invest in the larger equipment and do a larger batch. So I've got all the ingredients here laid out, measured and ready. So we've got 2 kilograms of Marisotta, 250 of wheat malt, and we've got this Cara Munich here. We've also got some hops. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that. We've got some Irish moss tablets here, and we've also got some Belgian candy rocks. And I've got some Belgian yeast, which is what I'm going to use for this recipe. I've had it in the fridge, but I've taken it out of the fridge to try and get to room temperature, and we're going to revitalise that soon. So some other gear you're going to need in order to do this is a sack. You're also going to need a hydrometer, which measures the gravity of your beer. So I've got one here, a cup in order to measure it, and a large tub. So we're only going to be making a half a brew, so we've only got sort of this. I think this is about a 19 litre tub. If you want to make the full brew, you're going to have a bigger one, but we just prefer to do half brews and find out which beer we like, and then we can make more of that one. Okay, let's get started. First stage is to prepare your yeast. I've taken it out of the fridge. I'm going to leave that to one side for the moment. We're going to need a full packet. You can have a look online at a yeast calculator to work out how much you need, but I'm going to need a full packet for this recipe, so I'm going to put that to one side. I've taken this jar out of a hot wash in the dishwasher, so it's pretty sanitized, but just to make sure, I'm going to put some boiling water in it, swill it around and empty it. I'm then going to fill it up just over half full with boiling water. Then I'm going to wait until it goes to 30 degrees and then put the yeast in. So you have to put boiling water in, wait for it to cool down naturally till it gets to 30 degrees, then you can put your yeast in. So I'm going to put that to one side and wait for that to cool down. It's obviously boiling water, so it's hot. It'll take a good hour or two to get down to 30 degrees, just keep an eye on it. The next stage is to fill our container with the required water. For ours we need 12 litres. Unfortunately, I've only got a small jug that does 1 litre, so this is where it takes a while. So we've got our 12 litres of water, and we've looked on an online calculator, and I'll put the link for that below the video, to work out what temperature we need to get this water to, which it's calculated it as 68.9, so we're just going for 69 degrees. I've got one of these temperature monitors that I'm going to stick into the water and I can measure it. I'd highly recommend you get one of these because they make life a lot easier. So the next stage is called mashing in. We've got our water up to the correct temperature, which is 69 degrees. What we're going to do is we're going to put the mash net in and secure it round the side for the moment. And then I'm going to put all of the grain in, but we're going to put it in slowly and we're going to stir at the same time. So I'm just going to slowly put this in. So I've turned off the temperature now, and I just don't want any lumps or bits in here, so I'm sort of giving that a bit of a stir. So I've now added all of the malt and just getting rid of any lumps that you can find like that, just try and get rid of them. So once that's all stirred in, and you can put the lid on. So I'm going to put the temperature monitor in so we can see what temperature it is, and I'm then going to wrap it with an old blanket that I've got. And this is to try and keep the heat in the container, because you're going to be leaving it like this now for an hour. Obviously I've turned the flame off, so there's no fire risk. I'm just going to wrap it around like this so it can try and keep as much of the heat in as possible. Oops. So once it's wrapped around like that, you're going to ideally leave this for an hour, but what you need to do is check it after 5 minutes to make sure that the temperature is correct. If it's out, then we're making a half a batch, so we're halving these numbers. But to cool it down, you want to add 250 grams of cold water, and that should reduce it by a degree. To warm it up, you can add 250 grams of boiling water, and that should raise it by a degree. So check it in 5 minutes to check what the temperature is, and then you want to, if you're doing this for the first time and wrapping it around, you want to check every 15 minutes. Which is why I've got our temperature monitor in here, because then we can keep an eye on it. So you need to maintain this now for 65 degrees for an hour. So we've had an hour at 65 degrees. So I'm now going to take the cover off, and I'm going to heat this up to 75 degrees for 10 minutes. So we'll get this going. Again, I've got my thermometer, so we'll keep an eye on that. You've got to bring it up slowly because the water is going to be hotter than the grain. So bring it up slowly and keep an eye on it, and then when it hits 75, you're done. So it's reached 75 degrees, so now I'm going to wrap it again and hold it there for 10 minutes. The next stage is called sparging, which basically means you're rinsing the grains. So we need 2 litres of water, and it needs to be at 75 degrees. And I'm going to lift the bag of grain, I'm going to put it into another container, and then I'm going to pour the 2 litres of 75 degrees water over the top of it. I'll lift it out. Okay, so I want to try and get most of the water out and drain it before putting it into my other container here. And I'm going to pour over my sparge water over my grain. So I'm going to give it a quick move about. And then I'm going to leave this really for 10 minutes. So I've just measured the temperature of my water. You remember we did this before, and it's now 30 degrees. So I've got my yeast. Some people say you should spray it with sanitizer and all this. To be honest with you, I'm not going to. I'm just going to open it up carefully and try not to touch the top and put my yeast in. Yeah. I've just sanitized my temperature thermometer, so I'm going to use that to give it a quick stir as well. And then I'm just going to put the lid on and let that yeast do its thing. So these have been soaking for 10 minutes. So the next thing is I'm going to try and drain them. But what you want to be careful is try not to squeeze too much, otherwise you're going to end up with too much trub in your beer. And the trub is the sediment that's left in the beer after fermentation. What you're left with is the grain. When this cools, I'll give some of this to the chickens. I probably won't give them all because it won't be very good for them, but I'll certainly give them some. They love it. Now I'm going to pour the water that we've sparged back into the pan with all the rest of the beer. And we're now going to boil this. As soon as you turn your flame on, you're going to add your first wort hops, which in our case is 15 grams. So in them, there you go. And also your sugar, which in our case is the Belgian candy rocks. So I'm going to add them in as well. All of them in. There we are. And give it a good stir. Keep it at the boil for 75 minutes. So we're 55 minutes into our 75 minutes of boiling, and it's now time to add our second load of hops and also our Irish moss tablet. So in go the hops, in goes the tablet, and I'll give it a stir as well. Now we're going to chill it down, and we've got to do that really quickly because every minute that it stays above 79 degrees makes it more and more bitter. So we're going to do it really quickly. Now we can put a wort chiller which sits in your bucket, and we're going to build one of them, but that's going to be another project another day. For now we're just going to use our sink. So I'm filling the sink with cold water and then emptying it when it gets warm and doing the same, but I'm also adding ice cubes as well just to make the cold water as cold as possible, and then obviously stirring it as well to try and help cool it. You want to try and get this down to 18 degrees, so you really need, I wouldn't bother even testing the temperature of the wort until it feels cold or lukewarm on the outside, because it takes quite a while to do. But you need to make sure you don't get any drips of the water inside, hence why I've got the cover over here. You need to make sure no water enters this bucket. So we've now got our beer down to 18 degrees, and I want to take the original gravity. So I've sanitised my ladle because this is going to go in the beer. I haven't sanitised that because it doesn't really matter. But I just need to take 100 ml of beer in order to be able to take my original gravity. We're taking our gravity reading. If it's too high, then you'll have to lick it back, which is basically adding extra water, but it has to be sanitized water, so water that you've boiled and then let cool back down to 18 degrees. If it's too low, there's nothing you can do about it. If you do need to lick it back, just look online for a calculator and it will tell you how much water you need to lick it back into. Here we're perfect. So I've taken the gravity reading, and I always suggest it's worth having a bit of a taste of the beer. Some people say it's good with whiskey as well, but it's just good to taste what it starts to, or it's going to taste like. Ooh, that is good. I like that already, actually. So we're ready to now put the beer in our fermenter, which I've disinfected. And you want to go in one go and try and get as much air as possible, and to reduce the amount of drips. So in one go like that, and then put the lid on and seal it. And then you want to get as much air as possible into it, so give it a good shake. Okay, I think we've done that. Now we're ready to add the yeast. So I'm going to give this one last shake up. And then pour the yeast in. Close it again. Make sure it's sealed. And then give it another good shake to get the yeast in and to get as much air as possible. That should be enough, right? And then the next stage is to put your airlock. So I'm going to pour sanitised water into the airlock. So I've sanitised the airlock itself and I've put sanitizer into the airlock as well. So now this needs to go somewhere where it's only 18 degrees. So for this beer, it's going to stay at 18 degrees for 2 to 3 days. Then we're going to let it rise to 26 degrees maximum for 2 weeks basically. Thank you for joining me to see how I made beer. That's video 1. The next video will be taking the gravity reading so we know when it's ready to bottle, and also bottling. So look forward to seeing you in my next video. Cheers guys, bye.